In a world of constant distraction, endless consumption, and persistent anxiety, an ancient philosophy offers timeless wisdom for the modern soul. Stoicism, born in Athens around 300 BCE and refined in Rome, provides practical tools not just for enduring life's challenges, but for flourishing despite them. This philosophy isn't about suppressing emotions or adopting a stern demeanor. Common misconceptions of what it means to be stoic in a colloquial sense. Rather, it's about cultivating inner strength, clear judgment, and purposeful action. The Stoics, figures like Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, were not isolated thinkers detached from reality. They were merchants, teachers, former slaves, and emperors who tested their philosophy in the crucible of daily life. They faced plagues, exile, imprisonment, and the burdens of rulership, yet found ways to maintain equanimity and virtue. This guide distills Stoic wisdom into 10 practical steps for self-transformation. Each step builds upon the previous, creating a comprehensive framework for living well. The journey begins with fundamental shifts in perception, progresses through daily practices, and culminates in a lifelong commitment to wisdom and virtue. Whether you're facing personal challenges, seeking meaning in a chaotic world, or simply looking to become a better version of yourself, these Stoic principles offer a path forward. They won't promise you wealth, fame, or perpetual happiness. The Stoics were too honest for such claims. Instead, they offer something more valuable: the ability to find tranquility amidst turmoil, purpose amidst uncertainty, and freedom amidst constraint. Let us begin this journey toward a better, more Stoic you. Step 1. Distinguish between what you can and cannot control. The dichotomy of control. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a deceptively simple principle. Some things are within our control, while others are not. This distinction, which Epictetus called the dichotomy of control, serves as the foundation for Stoic peace of mind. In his Enchiridion handbook, Epictetus begins with this crucial insight: some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This principle seems straightforward enough, yet most human suffering stems from either trying to control the uncontrollable or neglecting what we genuinely can control. We worry about the weather, other people's opinions, global events, past mistakes, and future uncertainties, all aspects beyond our direct influence. Meanwhile, we often fail to exercise control over our judgments, attitudes, and chosen responses. Practical applications. Morning reflection. Begin each day by mentally categorizing upcoming situations. Ask yourself, what aspects of this meeting/conversation/task are within my control? What aspects aren't? This simple exercise creates mental clarity before facing challenges. The circle exercise. Draw 2 concentric circles on paper. In the inner circle, list everything genuinely within your control. In the outer circle, list concerns that affect you but lie beyond your control. Whenever you feel anxious or frustrated, identify which circle contains the source of your discomfort. Modified serenity prayer. Whether religious or not, many Stoic practitioners benefit from this adaptation of Reinhold Niebuhr's famous prayer. Grant me the wisdom to know what I can control, the courage to control what I can, and the serenity to accept what I cannot control. Response cards. Create small cards with prompts like, is this within my control, or what aspect of this can I influence? Keep these in your wallet or as phone wallpapers for quick reference during stressful moments. Common obstacles. The illusion of control. We often believe we have more control than we actually do. The stock market, other people's reactions, or health outcomes may seem partially controllable, leading to unnecessary anxiety when things don't go as planned. The gray area. Some matters fall into a fuzzy middle ground, like influencing, but not controlling, another person's impression of you. Stoics would argue that your actions and presentation are within your control, while the ultimate judgment formed in another's mind is not. Passive resignation. Misinterpreting this principle can lead to inaction. The dichotomy of control isn't about surrendering to fate, but about directing your energy where it can be effective while accepting what truly lies beyond your power. Transformative effects. When you consistently practice this distinction, remarkable changes occur. Reduced anxiety. Energy previously wasted on uncontrollable matters becomes available for constructive purposes. Increased effectiveness. By focusing exclusively on what you can influence, your actual impact grows. Greater equanimity. External events lose their power to disturb your inner state. Clearer thinking. Decision-making improves when you operate from a realistic assessment of your sphere of influence. As Epictetus advised a troubled student, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Step 2. Develop the Stoic mindset of objective perception, seeing things as they are. The human mind instinctively interprets rather than simply perceives. We rarely see events as they actually are. Instead, we see them through layers of assumption, projection, and judgment. The Stoics recognized this tendency as a primary source of distress. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to strip away these interpretive layers. Remove the judgment and you have removed the thought, I am hurt. Remove the thought, I am hurt, and the hurt itself is removed. This practice, seeing things objectively without immediately attaching values or narratives, represents a fundamental Stoic skill. The ability to pause between stimulus and response creates space for wisdom. The process of objective perception. 1. Notice automatic judgments. Our minds constantly generate evaluative labels. Good/bad, fair/unfair, pleasant/unpleasant. The first step toward objective perception is simply noticing these automatic judgments as they occur. With practice, you'll catch yourself in the act of interpretation rather than remaining caught in unconscious reactions. 2. Strip away value judgments. Next, deliberately set aside these evaluations to see the raw facts. When someone criticizes you, for instance, the objective reality might simply be, a person expressed disagreement with my approach. The judgment that this criticism is devastating or unfair is your addition. 3. Describe, don't evaluate. Practice describing situations using neutral language. Instead of thinking this traffic is awful, try, the vehicles are moving slower than average today. Instead of my colleague disrespected me, consider, my colleague expressed disagreement in a loud voice. 4. Question your impressions. The Stoics taught that we should interrogate our initial reactions. When you feel strongly about something, ask yourself, is this impression completely accurate? Are there alternative interpretations? What would this look like to an impartial observer? Marcus Aurelius's 3 disciplines. Marcus Aurelius structured his Stoic practice around 3 interrelated disciplines. The discipline of perception, seeing things objectively and clearly. The discipline of action, behaving justly and effectively in the world. The discipline of will, accepting what we cannot change. Of these, perception forms the foundation. Without clear seeing, right action becomes impossible. Practical exercises. Contemplative walk. Take a walk while practicing objective observation. Notice details without immediately categorizing them as attractive or unattractive, good or bad. Simply observe shapes, colors, movements, and sounds as they are. News depersonalization. When reading news that provokes strong reactions, practice rewriting headlines in purely descriptive language, removing emotional triggers and political framing. The view from above. Imagine viewing your current situation from high above, from a mountaintop, an airplane, or even outer space. This cosmic perspective helps dissolve the seeming importance of many concerns. Physical description exercise. When upset about something, challenge yourself to describe the physical sensations in your body without the emotional narrative. My heart rate has increased, my facial muscles have tensed, my breathing is shallow rather than I'm furious. Benefits of objective perception. Mastering this skill delivers profound benefits. Emotional regulation. By separating facts from interpretations, emotional reactions become less automatic and more proportionate. Better problem solving. Clear perception leads to more effective solutions based on reality rather than distortion. Reduced conflict. Many interpersonal problems stem from subjective interpretations rather than objective events. Mental flexibility. The habit of questioning initial impressions creates adaptability and openness to different perspectives. As Epictetus noted, people are disturbed not by things, but by their judgments about things. By developing objective perception, you gain the power to choose your interpretations rather than being driven by unconscious reactions. Step 3. Practice negative visualization, premeditatio malorum, anticipating adversity for greater appreciation and resilience. Counterintuitively, one of the most powerful techniques for increasing happiness and resilience comes from regularly contemplating what could go wrong. The Stoics called this practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Unlike pessimism, this practice isn't about expecting the worst, but about mentally preparing for it, while simultaneously deepening gratitude for the present. Seneca explains this approach. He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. And further, set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" The psychology behind negative visualization. This practice works through several psychological mechanisms. 1. Hedonic adaptation reversal. Humans quickly adapt to positive circumstances, taking them for granted. By imagining their absence, we renew appreciation. The businessman who visualizes losing his wealth appreciates it more than one who simply counts it. 2. Fear inoculation. Repeatedly facing fears in imagination reduces their power. Just as vaccines use small doses of pathogens to build immunity, controlled exposure to feared scenarios in thought builds emotional resilience. 3. Preparation effect. Mentally rehearsing responses to difficulties improves actual responses if those difficulties materialize. Studies show that visualization activates many of the same neural pathways as physical practice. 4. Perspective restoration. Regular contemplation of worst-case scenarios restores proportion to everyday annoyances. Minor inconveniences lose their sting when compared to truly serious misfortunes. 3 levels of practice. Negative visualization can be practiced at 3 levels of intensity. Level 1. Appreciative contemplation. Briefly imagine losing what you value: health, loved ones, possessions, abilities. This isn't meant to induce anxiety, but to refresh gratitude. As Marcus Aurelius advised, do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours. Level 2. Scenario planning. More extensively visualize specific setbacks and mentally rehearse constructive responses. How would you handle job loss, serious illness, relationship breakdown, or public failure? This reduces future shock, while building confidence in your ability to cope. Level 3. Voluntary discomfort. The most intensive form involves temporarily experiencing mild versions of feared conditions. Seneca recommended periods of practicing poverty, eating simple food, wearing basic clothes, and sleeping on a hard mat. Modern equivalents might include fasting cold exposure or temporarily disabling conveniences like smartphones or hot water. Practical applications. Morning memento mori. Upon waking, briefly consider that this day might be your last. Far from being morbid, this practice heightens appreciation for the day ahead. Gratitude amplification. While listing things you're grateful for, briefly imagine their absence. This transforms routine gratitude into a more profound appreciation. Wealth reset. Periodically calculate what percentage of humanity lives on less than you do, typically over 80% for those in developed countries. Visualize living with significantly fewer resources. Relationship appreciation. When with loved ones, briefly imagine future scenarios where they're no longer present. This practice, recommended by Epictetus, transforms ordinary moments into precious ones. Health contemplation. While healthy, imagine temporary or permanent disability. This builds appreciation for abilities often taken for granted while reducing fear of potential limitations. Avoiding common pitfalls. Anxiety induction. If the practice produces persistent anxiety rather than resilience and appreciation, you may be focusing too intensely or failing to complete the mental exercise by returning to present gratitude. Self-punishment. Voluntary discomfort should be approached as training, not punishment. The goal is growth, not suffering for its own sake. Magical thinking. Some misinterpret this practice as a way to prevent bad things from happening. If I imagine it, it won't occur. This superstitious approach misses the point entirely. Overwhelming scenarios. Begin with moderate challenges before confronting your deepest fears. Just as physical training requires gradual progression, so does mental resilience training. As Seneca reminds us, it is in times of security that the spirit should be preparing itself for difficult times, while fortune is bestowing favors on it. Then is the time for it to be strengthened against her rebuffs. Step 4. Embrace impermanence and practice non-attachment. Understanding the transient nature of all things. A central insight of Stoic philosophy is that everything we possess, enjoy, and even love is temporary. Our health, relationships, achievements, possessions, and life itself are ultimately on loan to us, not permanently ours. This reality, while potentially unsettling, becomes profoundly liberating when fully embraced. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself, "Bear in mind that everything that exists is already fraying at the edges, and in transition, subject to fragmentation and to rot, or that everything that exists today is already gone tomorrow." Bear in mind that everything that exists is already fraying at the edges, and in transition, subject to fragmentation and to rot, or that everything that exists today is already gone tomorrow. This perspective isn't meant to induce despair, but to align our expectations with reality, allowing us to appreciate what we have without clinging desperately to it. The Stoic conception of non-attachment. Non-attachment in Stoicism differs from detachment or indifference. It means 1. Loving without possessing. The Stoic loves deeply but without the illusion of permanent possession. As Epictetus advised, when giving your child or wife a kiss, say to yourself, "I am kissing a mortal." This awareness doesn't diminish love, but purifies it of the anxiety of potential loss. 2. Using while remembering impermanence. Enjoying life's pleasures while maintaining awareness of their temporary nature. Seneca compared this to a guest enjoying a host's hospitality without forgetting he's just visiting. 3. Accepting natural processes. Recognizing that decay, change, and ending are natural processes, not cosmic errors. Just as we don't rage against autumn leaves falling, we can learn to accept the natural cycles of all things. 4. Finding the permanent within change. While external circumstances constantly shift, the Stoics found permanence in virtue, wisdom, and one's own character development, the only things truly up to us. Practical ways to cultivate non-attachment. Mental labeling exercise. Periodically remind yourself of the temporary nature of possessions by mentally adding "for now" to statements of ownership. This is my house for now. This is my health for now. These are my abilities for now. Impermanence meditation. Regularly contemplate the impermanence of objects, relationships, and situations. Consider how buildings will eventually crumble, technologies will become obsolete, and even great civilizations will pass away. Borrowed perspective. View your possessions as borrowed rather than owned. Marcus Aurelius suggested thinking of your child as a human being of human stock, and thus something neither yours nor in your power. Material simplification. Periodically declutter your living space, noticing any emotional resistance to parting with objects. This practice reveals hidden attachments while creating greater freedom. Legacy contemplation. Consider what truly remains after you're gone. Material wealth disperses, achievements are forgotten, but the impact of your virtue and the quality of your character may influence others for generations. The freedom of non-attachment. Far from creating emotional coldness, true non-attachment generates several profound benefits. 1. Freedom from anxiety. When we stop clinging to the impermanent as if it were permanent, much anxiety simply dissolves. We no longer burden ourselves with impossible expectations of permanence in an impermanent world. 2. Deeper appreciation. Awareness of impermanence intensifies appreciation. Just as a visitor to a beautiful country might appreciate it more than locals who take it for granted. Recognizing the temporary nature of life's gifts enhances their value. 3. Appropriate valuation. Non-attachment helps us value things according to their true worth. External advantages remain preferred indifference, desirable but not essential for happiness, while virtue maintains its position as the highest good. 4. Emotional resilience. When loss inevitably occurs, the practiced Stoic experiences grief without being devastated by it. Having mentally rehearsed loss and understood its inevitability, they can respond with equanimity rather than shock. 5. Present moment awareness. Recognizing impermanence naturally draws attention to the present moment, the only time we truly have. This heightened presence enhances both productivity and enjoyment. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Every part of me then will be reduced by change into some part of the universe, and that again will change into another part of the universe, and so on forever." By embracing this endless flux, rather than resisting it, we align ourselves with nature's fundamental processes and find peace amid impermanence. Step 5. Develop self-discipline and moderate desires. Mastering internal governance. Self-discipline, what the Greeks called enkratia, represents a cornerstone of Stoic practice. While modern culture often portrays desires as imperatives to be fulfilled, the Stoics recognized that true freedom requires mastery over one's appetites and impulses. Without this internal governance, we become slaves to fleeting urges, constantly chasing external satisfaction. Epictetus, himself a former slave, understood true freedom better than most. Freedom is not procured by a full enjoyment of what is desired, but by controlling desire itself. Musonius Rufus, another prominent Stoic teacher, emphasized that self-discipline must be practiced rather than merely discussed. We must undergo training exercises that are difficult even to the point of being painful if we are to acquire true self-control. The triad of discipline. Stoic self-discipline focuses particularly on 3 domains. 1. Appetites and physical desires. This includes food, drink, sex, comfort, and material possessions. The Stoic approach isn't ascetic self-denial but rational moderation, enjoying pleasures without being controlled by them. 2. Emotional reactions. Mastering impulses toward anger, fear, jealousy, excitement, and even excessive joy. The goal isn't emotional suppression, but appropriate response. 3. Mental habits. Disciplining attention, thought patterns, judgments, and focus. This includes resisting distraction and maintaining mental presence. Progressive training methods. The Stoics viewed self-discipline as a skill developed through progressive training. Beginner level, pause and examine. Before acting on any desire or impulse, introduce a brief pause. Ask, what is driving this desire? Is it aligned with my values? Is it necessary? This simple interruption breaks the automatic cycle of stimulus and response. Intermediate level, voluntary discomfort. Regularly introduce mild discomfort to build resilience and reduce dependency on external comforts. Musonius Rufus recommended practices like wearing insufficient clothing in winter, going barefoot, sleeping on a hard bed, or abstaining from wine. Modern versions might include cold showers, intermittent fasting, technology fasts, minimalist living experiments, physical training to the point of healthy discomfort. Advanced level, counter habitual behavior. Deliberately act against established habits and preferences to maintain freedom from them. Examples include taking different routes to familiar destinations, changing meal routines, reversing daily schedules when possible, using the non-dominant hand for simple tasks, speaking less or more than usual in social settings. Practical approaches to desire management. Desire inventory. Regularly catalog your desires, categorizing them as natural and necessary, health, basic nutrition, shelter. Natural but unnecessary, gourmet food, luxurious housing. Neither natural nor necessary, fame, excessive wealth. This classification, borrowed from Epictetus but compatible with Stoicism, helps prioritize and moderate desires. Postponement strategy. When hit with a non-essential desire, postpone its fulfillment. I may have this tomorrow instead. Often, the desire dissipates entirely. Cost-benefit analysis. For persistent desires, Thoroughly examine the full price of fulfillment, not just financial cost, but time, energy, freedom, tranquility, and alignment with values. Negative visualization for desires. Imagine obtaining the desired object or experience, then losing it or finding it unsatisfactory. This deflates the idealized expectations that fuel many desires. Satisfaction audit. Periodically review past desire fulfillments. Did acquiring those objects or experiences provide lasting satisfaction? This builds awareness of the hedonic treadmill, the freedom of self-restraint, counter to modern assumptions. The Stoics found that self-discipline leads to greater freedom and pleasure, not less. 1. Freedom from compulsion. The disciplined person chooses their actions rather than being driven by impulse. As Epictetus noted, no man is free who is not master of himself. 2. Enhance enjoyment. Moderate pleasures maintain their savor, while constant indulgence leads to diminishing returns. The disciplined person genuinely enjoys simple pleasures that the indulgent find bland. 3. Resource efficiency. Energy, time, and resources previously consumed by excessive desires become available for meaningful pursuits. 4. Social harmony. Unchecked desires often lead to conflict, exploitation, or harmful competition. Self-discipline facilitates ethical relationships. 5. Inner tranquility. The constant stimulation of desire fulfillment creates restlessness rather than peace. The self-disciplined mind achieves greater calm. As Seneca wisely observed, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. By learning to moderate desires rather than multiply them, we gain presence, purpose, and genuine satisfaction that no amount of indulgence can provide. Step 6. Cultivate virtue as the highest good. Understanding virtue in Stoicism. For the Stoics, virtue, arete in Greek, virtus in Latin, was not merely one good among many, but the sole true good, the only thing necessary and sufficient for eudaimonia, flourishing. This cornerstone of Stoic ethics distinguishes it from many modern philosophical and psychological approaches. The Roman Stoic Seneca explained this priority clearly. Virtue alone affords everlasting and peace-giving joy, and more emphatically, virtue is the only good. All else is indifferent. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues, each representing excellence in a different domain of human functioning. 1. Wisdom, Sophia, excellence in judgment and discernment, the ability to navigate complex situations with clarity and good sense. 2. Justice, Dikaiosyne, excellence in relationships and social conduct, treating others with fairness, respect, and appropriate benevolence. 3. Courage, Andreia, excellence in facing challenges and hardship, standing firm in the face of fear or difficulty. 4. Temperance, Sophrosyne, excellence in self-regulation, moderation and appropriate restraint in all areas of life. These virtues are interdependent. True wisdom requires justice. Authentic courage needs temperance, and so on. Together, they constitute the Stoic conception of human excellence. The indifference, preferred and dispreferred. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Stoic ethics is the concept of indifference. The Stoics classified everything beyond virtue, including health, wealth, reputation, pleasure, and even life itself, as indifferent with respect to true happiness. This doesn't mean these things don't matter at all, but rather that they don't contribute to the goodness of one's character or soul. The Stoics further distinguish between preferred indifference, natural advantages like health, adequate resources, and social connections. These are rationally selected when available, but not necessary for happiness. Dispreferred indifference, natural disadvantages like illness, poverty, and rejection. These are rationally avoided when possible, but not sufficient to prevent happiness. The key insight is that virtue can be exercised in any circumstance. The wealthy person can demonstrate temperance. The poor person can show justice. The healthy individual can display courage. The ill person can exhibit wisdom. No external condition prevents the exercise of virtue, and therefore no external condition can prevent eudaimonia. Practical applications for cultivating virtue. 1. Value clarification exercise. Regularly examine your hierarchy of values by asking, if I could maintain only one quality in a difficult situation, what would it be? Repeat this thought experiment under various challenging scenarios to clarify your commitment to virtue over externals. 2. Virtue journaling. Keep a daily record focused specifically on virtuous and non-virtuous behavior. Note instances where you displayed or failed to display wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Look for patterns and opportunities for growth. 3. Role model analysis. Identify individuals, historical, contemporary, or fictional, who exemplify particular virtues. Study their decisions, attitudes, and behaviors. The Stoics themselves often invoked figures like Socrates and Cato as exemplars. 4. Challenging scenario rehearsal. Mentally rehearse maintaining virtue in challenging circumstances. How would you remain just when treated unfairly? How would you maintain courage when afraid? How would you demonstrate wisdom when confused? 5. Virtue meditation. Spend time each day contemplating the nature of specific virtues. What does courage look like in modern contexts? How does wisdom manifest in your profession? What does justice require in your relationships? 6. External rewards fast. Periodically practice acting virtuously without external recognition or reward. This strengthens the understanding that virtue is its own reward rather than a means to external benefits. Common obstacles to virtue-centric living. Value confusion. Modern society bombards us with messages that external outcomes determine happiness. Advertising, social media, and conventional success metrics all reinforce this misperception. Outcome attachment. Tying satisfaction to results rather than to the quality of our intentions and actions creates vulnerability and inconsistency. Virtue signaling trap. Using virtuous behavior primarily to enhance reputation or social standing corrupts genuine virtue with external motivation. All or nothing thinking. Viewing virtue as binary, either perfect or absent, rather than as a continuous practice with constant opportunity for improvement. Single virtue imbalance. Overemphasizing one virtue while neglecting others creates vulnerability. Courage without wisdom becomes recklessness. Justice without temperance becomes fanaticism. The revolutionary power of virtue-centric living. Adopting virtue as the highest good transforms existence in several profound ways. 1. Unconditional happiness. When well-being depends solely on internal excellence rather than external circumstances, it becomes possible under any conditions. As Epictetus stated, he is free who lives as he wishes to live, who is neither subject to compulsion nor to hindrance nor to force, whose movements to action are not impeded, whose desires attain their purpose, and who does not fall into that which you would avoid. 2. Simplified decision-making. When virtue clearly outranks all other considerations, many difficult choices become straightforward. The question shifts from what will benefit me most to what action best expresses virtue. 3. Harmonized life. The pursuit of external goods often creates internal conflict as different desires compete. Virtue, as the highest good, harmonizes life around a coherent central value. For meaningful suffering, when maintaining virtue matters more than avoiding discomfort. Even hardship gains meaning as an opportunity to express excellence of character. 5. Freedom from comparison. Unlike external achievements, virtue doesn't depend on outperforming others. This liberation from comparative success creates genuine goodwill toward others flourishing. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, just as the nature of rational things is given to each person their rational powers, so it also gives us this power. Just as nature turns to its own purpose any obstacle or any opposition, and places it in the destined path, and makes it a part of itself, so every rational person can convert any obstacle into the raw material for their own purpose. Step 7. Incorporate daily Stoic practices and routines. Structuring the Stoic day. The Stoics understood that philosophy must be practiced, not merely contemplated. They developed specific daily routines to transform philosophical principles into lived reality. These practices, when consistently applied, gradually reshape perception, emotional responses, and behavior. Epictetus emphasized this practical orientation. If you didn't learn these things in order to demonstrate them in practice, what did you learn them for? While ancient Stoics didn't leave complete daily schedules. Their writings reveal consistent practices that can be adapted to modern life. The following framework integrates these historical practices with contemporary understanding of habit formation and behavioral change. Morning practices. Morning preparation. Premeditation. Begin the day by mentally rehearsing potential challenges and your intended virtuous responses to them. This practice combines negative visualization with proactive planning. Marcus Aurelius demonstrates this in his morning meditation. Say to yourself first thing in the morning, I shall meet with people who are meddling, ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, and unsociable. They are subject to these faults because of their ignorance of what is good and bad. This anticipation isn't pessimism, but preparation, allowing you to respond with virtue rather than react from habit when challenges arise. Morning reflection principles. Upon waking, briefly contemplate key Stoic principles that will guide your day. The dichotomy of control, the impermanence of external things, the priority of virtue over external outcomes, your connection to the larger human community, the opportunity each day presents for practicing wisdom. Morning affirmations. Create concise statements that reinforce core Stoic insights. Examples might include, I cannot control external events, but I can control my responses. Virtue alone is sufficient for happiness. I am part of the human community with duties toward others. This day is a precious, non-renewable resource. Speak these affirmations aloud or write them down to strengthen their impact. Throughout the day, mindful perception. Practice viewing situations objectively before adding interpretations. When something happens, mentally separate the event itself from your evaluation of it. Ask, what are the bare facts here, separated from my judgment about them? Role ethics check-in. The Stoics believed we occupy multiple roles: citizen, family member, professional, human being, each with associated duties. Throughout the day, check whether your actions align with these roles. Ask, am I fulfilling my duties as a friend / parent / professional / human being in this moment? Micromeditations. Use brief pauses throughout the day, before meetings, while waiting, during transitions, to reset attention and reconnect with Stoic principles. Even 30 seconds of focused breathing, while recalling your commitment to virtue, can recenter a scattered mind. Virtuous response practice. When facing challenging situations, briefly pause to identify the virtue most needed in that moment. Is wisdom required to see clearly? Is justice needed in dealing with others? Is courage necessary to overcome fear? Is temperance called for to moderate reactions? This pause creates space for chosen response rather than automatic reaction. View from above. During natural breaks in the day, practice the view from above visualization. Mentally zoom out from your current situation, seeing it from increasingly broader perspectives. Your city, country, planet, and cosmos. This cosmic perspective reduces the apparent magnitude of present concerns. Evening practices. Evening review. Seneca's questions. End each day with structured self-examination. Seneca recommended asking, what ailments have you cured today? What vices have you resisted? In what respect are you better? A modern adaptation might include, what did I do well today from a Stoic perspective? Where did I fall short of my Stoic ideals? How specifically will I improve tomorrow? This review should be conducted with self-honesty, but without harsh self-judgment. The goal is improvement, not self-punishment. Journaling practice. Following the example of Marcus Aurelius, maintain a journal for working through Stoic principles and personal challenges. Unlike modern journaling focused on self-expression, Stoic journaling centers on self-examination and philosophical progress. Effective prompts include, how did I respond to difficulty today? What false impressions did I notice and correct? Where did I place value on externals rather than virtue? How did I express wisdom, justice, courage, or temperance? Gratitude contemplation. Before sleep, identify specific elements of your day for which you can feel genuine gratitude. The Stoic approach focuses particularly on opportunities to practice virtue, advantages often taken for granted, difficulties that provided growth, the human connections that enrich life. creating a sustainable practice, progressive implementation. Rather than attempting all practices at once, begin with one morning and one evening practice. Once these become habitual, typically 30 to 60 days, add midday practices. Environmental cues. Link Stoic practices to existing habits or environmental triggers. Morning reflection immediately after brushing teeth. Mindful perception before checking email. Evening review while preparing for bed. Practice community. If possible, find or create a small group for regular discussion of Stoic practice. The shared commitment enhances individual motivation while providing valuable perspective. Periodic, intensive practice. The Stoics recommended occasional periods of more austere practice. Modern adaptations might include a weekend of simplified living, a day of technology abstention, a week of enhanced attention to specific virtues, a month of more rigorous self-examination. Practice flexibility. While consistency matters, rigid adherence to specific practices can become counterproductive. If circumstances prevent your usual morning routine, adapt with abbreviated versions rather than abandoning practice entirely. As Seneca advised, let philosophy scrape off your own faults rather than be a way to rail against the faults of others. Daily practice gradually transforms philosophical understanding into embodied wisdom. With consistency, these practices become less an imposition on your schedule than the natural expression of your developing Stoic character. Step 8. Build resilience through adversity. Transforming obstacles into opportunities. For Stoics, adversity wasn't merely something to be endured, but a vital opportunity for growth and the expression of virtue. This perspective transforms challenges from unwelcome intrusions into essential components of a well-lived life. Marcus Aurelius captured this transformative attitude. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This paradoxical approach, seeing obstacles as the path itself rather than barriers to the path, represents one of Stoicism's most powerful psychological tools. The Stoic theory of adversity. The Stoics developed a sophisticated understanding of adversity's role in human development. Nature's training program. They viewed difficulties as nature's way of strengthening human beings, just as resistance builds physical strength. Seneca explained, God does not make a spoiled pet of a good man. He tests him, hardens him, and fits him for his own service. Whether or not one shares the theological perspective, the principle remains psychologically sound. Comfort builds complacency, while appropriate challenge builds capacity. The revelation of character. The Stoics recognize that adversity doesn't create character so much as reveal it. Epictetus noted, circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself. Difficult situations expose our current level of virtue development, showing us precisely where further growth is needed. The opportunity for distinction. While anyone can function in favorable circumstances, adversity provides the opportunity to demonstrate exceptional qualities. As Seneca observed, fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men. The Stoics saw adversity not as unfair punishment, but as the necessary context for moral excellence. Practical approaches to adversity. Cognitive reframing. When facing difficulties, deliberately reframe the situation using these Stoic perspectives. This is an opportunity to practice virtue. This difficulty is revealing important information about my character development. This obstacle is teaching me something I need to learn. This challenge allows me to demonstrate qualities I value. This mental shift transforms the experience of adversity without denying its difficulty. The reserve clause with reservation. When pursuing any goal, add the mental reservation, fate permitting, or if nothing prevents it. This acknowledges the reality that external outcomes aren't fully under our control. Epictetus advised, when you're about to embark on any action, remind yourself what kind of action it is. If you're going out to bathe, set before your mind the things that happen at the baths. Some people splash the water, some push, some use abusive language, and others steal. Thus you will more safely go about this action if you say to yourself, I now intend to bathe and to maintain my will in accordance with nature. And so for each thing you do, this mental habit prevents shock when obstacles arise while maintaining purposeful action. Voluntary hardship training. Regularly undertake challenging activities specifically to build resilience. Fasting for a designated period. Cold exposure, cold showers, outdoor winter exercise. Sustained cardiovascular effort. Public speaking or social challenges. Intentional simplicity periods, minimal resources. These voluntary challenges build confidence in your ability to handle involuntary difficulties. Adversity journaling. Maintain a specific journal documenting how you respond to difficulties. Describe the adverse situation objectively. Record your initial emotional reaction. Analyze the judgments driving that reaction. Identify the virtues this situation calls for. Document your chosen response. Reflect on lessons learned. Over time, this practice reveals patterns in your responses to adversity and tracks your developing resilience. Modeling and visualization. Study examples of resilience, both historical and contemporary. Deliberately visualize yourself responding to difficulties with similar virtue. The Stoics frequently invoked role models, like Socrates and Cato, precisely because their examples made abstract virtue concrete. Common obstacles to resilience. Entitlement mindset. The belief that one deserves an easy life creates vulnerability when inevitable difficulties arise. The Stoic recognizes that challenge is a normal, necessary part of human existence. Catastrophizing. Seeing difficulties as unbearable rather than merely preferred to avoid. The Stoic distinguishes between genuine tragedy and mere inconvenience, responding proportionately to each. Personalization. Interpreting adversity as targeted or personal why me, rather than as a natural aspect of the human condition. The Stoic understands that difficulty is universal rather than personal. Comparison traps. Focusing on others who seem to have easier circumstances rather than on one's own response to difficulty. The Stoic concentrates on their own virtuous response rather than on apparent external inequities. The Stoic promise of anti-fragility. Beyond mere resilience returning to baseline after difficulty, Stoic practice offers the possibility of anti-fragility, actually becoming stronger because of adversity. This transformation occurs when 1. Difficulties reveal hidden strengths. Challenges often uncover capabilities we didn't know we possessed, expanding our self-concept and confidence. 2. Obstacles clarify priorities. Adversity forces us to distinguish between the essential and the trivial, often leading to greater life satisfaction through simplified values. 3. Hardship deepens compassion. Personal suffering properly processed typically increases our capacity to understand and support others' difficulties. 4. Setbacks build perspective. Surviving significant challenges provides lasting context that reduces anxiety about minor problems. 5. Resistance creates psychological strength. Just as muscles develop through resistance, psychological capabilities expand through appropriate challenge. Epictetus, who experienced slavery, disability, and exile, nonetheless concluded, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." Some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. This simple acceptance forms the foundation of Stoic resilience, focusing on our response rather than demanding different circumstances. Step 9. Develop rational thinking and overcome cognitive biases. The Stoic commitment to reason. The Stoics placed enormous emphasis on rational thinking, viewing reason logos as humanity's defining characteristic and greatest tool. They understood that the mind, left to its own devices, falls prey to numerous biases and errors that distort perception and judgment. Epictetus emphasized the importance of this cognitive discipline. The beginning of philosophy is the recognition of the conflict between opinions, the examination of opinions to determine which are true and which are false, and the discovery of the criterion of truth. While modern cognitive science has identified many specific biases unknown to the ancients, the Stoic approach to rational thinking remains remarkably effective in addressing these mental distortions. Common cognitive biases and Stoic remedies. 1. Confirmation bias. The tendency to notice and prioritize information that confirms existing beliefs, while overlooking contradictory evidence. Stoic remedy. Deliberately seek disconfirming evidence for your most cherished beliefs. Practice arguing convincingly for positions you disagree with. As Marcus Aurelius advised, if anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective. I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after. 2. Negativity bias. The tendency to give greater weight to negative experiences than positive ones. Stoic remedy. Practice evening reflection specifically focused on positive aspects of the day. Develop the habit of identifying overlooked advantages in seemingly negative situations. As Seneca suggested, we should hunt out the helpful pieces of teaching and the spirited and noble-minded sayings which are capable of immediate practical application, not far-fetched or archaic expressions or extravagant metaphors and figures of speech, and learn them so well that words become works. 3. Correspondence bias, fundamental attribution error. The tendency to attribute others' behavior to their character, while attributing our own behavior to circumstances. Stoic remedy. Practice the discipline of assent by withholding judgment about others' motives. Develop the habit of generating multiple possible explanations for behavior. As Epictetus counseled, when someone seems to have done you wrong, immediately consider with what conception of good or evil they did wrong. When you see this, you will feel compassion instead of amazement or anger. 4. Catastrophizing. The tendency to assume worst-case scenarios and magnify problems beyond their actual significance. Stoic remedy. Apply objective description to problems, stripping away emotional language. Compare current difficulties to genuinely catastrophic possibilities. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, today I escaped anxiety, or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. 5. Appeal to nature fallacy. The assumption that what is natural is automatically good or right. Stoic remedy. Distinguish between descriptive and prescriptive claims about nature. Recognize that human nature specifically includes the capacity for rational choice beyond instinct. As Seneca noted, we are born for virtue, but not with virtue. 6. Availability heuristic. The tendency to overestimate the likelihood of events based on how easily examples come to mind. Stoic remedy. Deliberately seek statistical reality rather than relying on memorable examples. Distinguish between vivid anecdotes and representative data. Practice what modern philosophers call epistemic humility, acknowledging the limits of your knowledge. 7. Sunk cost fallacy. The tendency to persist with endeavors based on past investment rather than future prospects. Stoic remedy. Practice the discipline of desire by focusing on current reality rather than past investment. Regularly review commitments with fresh evaluation rather than historical accounting. As Epictetus advised, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Practical cognitive training. Dialectical journaling. When facing important decisions or holding strong opinions, create written dialogues between different perspectives. Play devil's advocate against your own position, generating the strongest possible counterarguments. This practice, reminiscent of Socratic dialogue, reveals hidden assumptions and weaknesses in reasoning. Epistemic calibration. Regularly test your confidence in your knowledge by writing down predictions with confidence levels. I'm 90% certain that, then checking results. This practice builds more accurate assessment of what you actually know versus what you think you know. Cognitive distortion hunting. Train yourself to identify common thinking errors in real time. Black and white thinking. Overgeneralization. Mind reading. Assuming you know others' thoughts. Emotional reasoning. Assuming feelings reflect reality. Shoulds and musts. Rigid, unrealistic expectations. When these patterns arise, consciously replace them with more nuanced, evidence-based thinking. Pre-mortem analysis. Before important decisions, conduct a pre-mortem by imagining the decision has failed and generating plausible explanations for that failure. This counters optimism bias and reveals potential weaknesses in plans. Steel manning. Instead of attacking weak versions of opposing views, straw manning. Practice articulating the strongest possible version of positions you disagree with. Steel manning. This intellectual honesty leads to better thinking and more productive dialogue. The discipline of assent. central to Stoic cognitive practice, is what Epictetus called the discipline of assent, the conscious evaluation of impressions before accepting them as true. This involves 1. Separating impression from judgment, learning to distinguish between the initial appearance of things and your evaluation of them. The impression this person ignored me is distinct from the judgment this person dislikes me. 2. Questioning automatic conclusions, habitually interrogating your immediate interpretations. Is this certainly true? What evidence supports it? What alternatives might explain this? 3. Applying logical tests, subjecting important beliefs to logical examination. Is this consistent with other things I know? Does it contain contradictions? Does it follow from sound premises? 4. Suspending judgment when appropriate, developing comfort with uncertainty rather than leaping to conclusions without adequate evidence. As Epictetus taught, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The payoff, cognitive freedom. The Stoic commitment to rational thinking isn't merely about being correct more often. It represents a fundamental liberation from the tyranny of automatic thought patterns and emotional reactions. This cognitive freedom manifests in several ways. 1. Emotional regulation. When thoughts become more accurate, emotions naturally become more appropriate to situations. As Marcus Aurelius noted, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. 2. Reduced interpersonal conflict. Many conflicts stem from misattributions about others' motives or misinterpretations of their actions. Cognitive discipline significantly reduces these misunderstandings. 3. Better decision-making. Decisions based on clear thinking and accurate assessment naturally produce better outcomes than those clouded by bias and error. 4. Intellectual integrity. The habit of questioning one's own thinking fosters genuine intellectual honesty rather than mere defense of prior positions. 5. Mental tranquility. Much anxiety stems from distorted thinking. As cognitive distortions decrease, natural tranquility emerges. As Seneca observed, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The Stoic ideal isn't perfect rationality, an impossible standard for human beings, but rather continuous improvement in our thinking and increasingly accurate alignment between our perceptions and reality. Step 10. Contribute to the common good. Practicing Stoic cosmopolitanism. The Stoic vision of human community. While popular misconceptions sometimes portray Stoicism as a philosophy of isolated self-sufficiency, the historical Stoics emphasized our profound interconnection. They developed the revolutionary concept of cosmopolitanism, the view that all human beings belong to a single moral community transcending local, ethnic, and national boundaries. Hierarchals, a Stoic philosopher, depicted this as a series of concentric circles with the self at the center, surrounded by family, friends, community, nation, and finally, all humanity. The Stoic task was to draw the circles inward, to treat those in outer circles more like those in inner circles. Marcus Aurelius expressed this interconnection beautifully. We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on them. These are obstructions. The philosophical foundations of Stoic service. The Stoic commitment to serving others rests on several key principles. 1. Natural human sociability. The Stoics viewed humans as inherently social beings whose nature is fulfilled through cooperative relationships. Seneca wrote, "No one can live a happy life if he turns everything to his own purposes. Live for others if you want to live for yourself." 2. Shared rationality. The Stoics saw the capacity for reason as creating a universal human community. As Marcus Aurelius noted, if thought is common to all men, then reason, which makes us reasoning beings, is also common. If this is so, then the reason which prescribes what should be done and what shouldn't is common too. If this is so, law is common. If this is so, we are citizens. If this is so, we share a common political system. If this is so, the universe is a kind of state. 3. Oikeiosis, appropriation or familiarization. This central Stoic concept describes the process by which we naturally recognize ourselves and others and extend our circle of concern outward. It begins with self-preservation, but naturally develops toward care for others. For justice is primary virtue. Of the four cardinal virtues, the Stoics placed particular emphasis on justice in social relations. They saw treating others fairly as not merely beneficial, but essential to human excellence. Practical applications for modern life. Moral ethics. The Stoics viewed life as a series of roles with associated responsibilities: citizen, family member, friend, colleague, and human being. Regularly examine how well you fulfill each role. As a citizen, are you informed, engaged, and constructive? As a family member, are you attentive, supportive, and reliable? As a professional, are you honest, diligent, and beneficial? As a human being, do you contribute to the common good? 2. Circle expansion practice. Deliberately practice extending concern to those typically outside your circle of immediate care. When shopping, consider the workers who produced your goods. When using public services, acknowledge those who maintain them. When forming political opinions, consider impacts on distant others. When making lifestyle choices, weigh environmental consequences. Free justice audit. Periodically examine your life for inconsistencies in how you treat different people. Do you apply different ethical standards based on group membership? Are there people whose interests you consistently discount? Or might unconscious bias affect your treatment of others? How might privilege blind you to others' experiences? 4. Concrete service commitments. Transform philosophical cosmopolitanism into specific actions. Volunteer regularly with organizations addressing genuine needs. Donate effectively to causes with demonstrated impact. Use professional skills for pro bono service. Make civic engagement a consistent priority rather than an occasional activity. 5. Constructive speech practice. Apply Stoic principles to communication by asking before speaking. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it helpful? Is it kind? Is it timely? This combines Stoic concern for truth with care for others' well-being. Overcoming obstacles to service. Compassion fatigue. The Stoics would counter modern compassion fatigue with 2 insights. Virtue benefits the practitioner as much as the recipient. We're responsible for the effort, not the outcome. As Marcus Aurelius advised, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. Zero-sum thinking. The assumption that helping others necessarily comes at your expense contradicts the Stoic understanding of human flourishing. The Stoics recognize that virtue benefits its possessor first and foremost. As Seneca noted, he who gives benefits to another benefits himself, not just in the consequences, but in the very act of giving, being conscious of having done something good. Tribal psychology. Our evolved tendency to care more about in-group members creates resistance to cosmopolitan ethics. The Stoic remedies this through conscious recognition of shared humanity, deliberate perspective-taking exercises, regular contemplation of human interconnection, the discipline of extending concern beyond natural boundaries, perceived ineffectiveness. The feeling that individual actions don't matter in the face of enormous problems contradicts Stoic emphasis on process over outcome. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, do not be disgusted, discouraged, or dissatisfied if you do not succeed in doing everything according to right principles. But when you have failed, return again, and be content if the greater part of what you do is consistent with man's nature. The integration of self-development and service. The Stoic vision fundamentally unites personal development with social contribution. Unlike philosophies that see these as separate or even competing domains, Stoicism recognizes them as inseparable aspects of human excellence. Self-development enables better service. By developing virtues like wisdom, courage, and temperance, we become more effective in serving others. The discipline of managing emotions prevents burnout. The habit of clear thinking leads to more effective interventions. The practice of moderation ensures sustainable effort. Service contexts develop virtue. Simultaneously, service provides the necessary context for developing virtue. Courage develops through facing social challenges. Justice grows through navigating competing claims. Wisdom deepens through addressing complex human problems. As Seneca observed, men exist for the sake of one another. Teach them then, or bear with them. And Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, when you have done a good act and another has received it, why do you still look for a third thing besides these, as fools do? Either to have the reputation of having done a good act or to obtain a return. In the Stoic vision, a truly good human life necessarily includes contribution to the common good, not as sacrifice or obligation, but as the natural expression of human excellence and the fulfillment of our social nature. Conclusion: living the Stoic life. The 10 steps we've explored represent not a linear progression, but an integrated system for living. Each step reinforces the others, creating a coherent approach to human existence that has stood the test of time. The ongoing journey. Stoicism is not a destination, but a continuous practice. As Seneca acknowledged, I am not a wise man, and I never will be. I am not better, but better off. That is all you should expect of me. Content yourself with a man who is always making progress. The Stoic life involves perpetual vigilance, awareness of automatic reactions, false impressions, and habitual patterns doesn't come naturally. It requires ongoing attention to thoughts, emotions, and judgments. Regular renewal. Even the most dedicated practitioner experiences backsliding. The Stoic expects this and builds and practices for returning to the path. Morning recommitment. Regular philosophical reading. Community reinforcement. Periodic, intensive practice. Progressive challenges. As basic practices become habitual, the Stoic seeks more refined tests of character and opportunities for growth. What once seemed difficult becomes manageable, revealing new frontiers for development. Adaptive application. Stoicism isn't a rigid set of rules, but a framework for navigating an ever-changing world. Each new circumstance presents fresh opportunities to apply Stoic principles in novel ways. The promise of Stoicism. What can the sincere practitioner of Stoicism expect from this philosophy? Not the elimination of all negative emotions, perfect tranquility at all times, or freedom from life's inevitable difficulties. The Stoics were too honest about human nature to promise such impossibilities. Rather, the gradual development of 1. Emotional resilience, the capacity to maintain equilibrium amid life's inevitable ups and downs. Not immunity to emotions, but freedom from emotional tyranny. 2. Clear judgment, the ability to see situations accurately, without distortion from fear, desire, or cognitive bias. Not perfect rationality, but significantly improved perception. 3. Meaningful freedom, liberation from dependence on external outcomes for well-being. Not detachment from life, but engagement without unhealthy attachment. 4. Genuine virtue, character that expresses human excellence in thought, emotion, and action. Not moral perfection, but ongoing ethical development. 5. Unconditional worth, self-respect based on character rather than achievement, appearance, or approval. Not arrogance, but appropriate recognition of intrinsic value. 6. Social contribution, life oriented toward the common good rather than merely private satisfaction. Not self-sacrifice, but fulfillment of our social nature. Final thoughts. The Stoic journey is both profoundly personal and inherently communal. It transforms the individual while connecting them more deeply to humanity. It accepts reality without surrendering to pessimism. It acknowledges human limitations while believing in human potential. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in what he thought were private meditations, never intended for publication. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? The things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm? The Stoic life calls us to be fully human, to exercise our capacity for reason, to express our social nature, to develop our potential for virtue. It offers not escape from life's difficulties, but engagement with them in a way that transforms both ourselves and our world. In a culture obsessed with comfort, convenience, and consumption, Stoicism provides a radically different vision of the good life, one focused on virtue, reasoned choice, and contribution to the common good. 23 centuries after its founding. Its wisdom remains not merely relevant, but essential. The path of Stoic practice lies before you. As Epictetus would say, the door is open. Will you step through? Additional resources. Primary Stoic texts. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. The personal journal of the Roman emperor, never intended for publication. Discourses and Enchiridion by Epictetus, recorded by his student Arrian. These works capture the teachings of the former slave who became a renowned philosopher. Letters from a Stoic and On the Shortness of Life by Seneca. Practical wisdom from the Roman statesman and playwright, Musonius Rufus. Lectures and sayings, teachings from the Roman Socrates, who influenced both Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. Modern books on Stoicism. A Guide to the Good Life. The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy by William B. Irvine. How to Be a Stoic by Massimo Pigliucci. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Stoicism and the Art of Happiness by Donald Robertson. The Practicing Stoic by Ward Farnsworth. Online resources. The Daily Stoic, website, newsletter, and podcast offering daily Stoic meditations. Modern Stoicism. Organization running Stoic Week and Stoicon events worldwide. Stoicism subreddit. Active community discussing practical applications of Stoic philosophy. Traditional Stoicism. Forum focused on historically accurate interpretations of Stoic texts. Stoic practices and communities. Stoic Week. Annual event with guided meditations and exercises for applying Stoicism. Stoicon International Conference on Stoicism with practical workshops. Stoa app with Stoic exercises and reminders. Local Stoic meetup groups. Check meetup.com for Stoic communities in your area. Remember that reading about Stoicism without practicing it is like reading about exercise without going to the gym. The true value of this philosophy emerges only through consistent application.